There is a moment that happens to almost every budgie owner eventually. You walk into the room where the cage is. You have done this hundreds of times, but this time something is different. The bird's head turns before you reach the doorway, before you speak, before you make any sound at all. It turns toward the specific point where you are about to appear, as if it already knew you were coming, as if it had been expecting you specifically. Not the sound of footsteps, not movement in the room. You. You were not imagining it. And the science behind why this happens is more specific, more studied, and more remarkable than most budgie owners ever learn. Welcome back to Pet Bird Mind. Subscribe before you leave, because what researchers have documented about budgerigar face recognition and what it means for the specific relationship you have built with your bird changes the way you will understand every interaction you have had with it since the day it arrived. Today we are going through what science has actually found about how budgies recognize, remember, and respond to specific human faces, and what that capacity tells us about the nature of the bond your bird has formed with you. The research starts with a deceptively simple question: can a budgerigar distinguish between two different human faces? The intuitive answer for most people is probably yes, in some general way. The bird knows its owner from a stranger. But the research answer is considerably more specific and considerably more impressive than that intuition suggests. Studies on budgerigar visual cognition conducted at multiple institutions over the past 2 decades have documented that budgies can distinguish between human faces with a level of accuracy and a level of specificity that researchers consistently describe as surprising for a bird of this size and with a brain of this architecture. The birds do not simply distinguish between familiar and unfamiliar faces as a binary category. This is where the research becomes genuinely surprising even to scientists who study animal cognition professionally. The binary familiar-unfamiliar distinction is what you would expect from a relatively simple recognition system, one that classifies incoming faces into 2 buckets and responds accordingly. What budgies demonstrate is something architecturally more complex, a graded, individual-level recognition system that operates across multiple identity dimensions simultaneously. They distinguish between specific individuals within the familiar category, between specific individuals within the unfamiliar category, and they do so reliably across changes in lighting, viewing angle, and even partial obstruction of the face. The most directly relevant body of research comes from the University of Lincoln, whose Animal Cognition Laboratory has produced a series of studies specifically examining visual recognition capabilities in budgerigars and their social implications. In one representative study design, budgies were trained to associate specific photographs of human faces with food rewards. The birds not only learned to distinguish the rewarded face from control faces with high accuracy, a result achievable through simple associative learning, but demonstrated generalization of that recognition to novel images of the same individual taken from different angles and under different lighting conditions. This generalization is the critical finding. Simple associative learning produces recognition of a specific image. Generalized face recognition produces recognition of a specific person, the understanding that this individual looks like this from multiple vantage points, in multiple contexts, under multiple conditions. The University of Lincoln researchers concluded that budgerigars possess a capacity for individual face recognition that is genuinely analogous, in its functional structure, to the face recognition capacity that humans use to navigate their social worlds. What this means for your bird specifically is not just that it can recognize your face. It means that your bird has been building and refining a detailed perceptual model of your face since the first days you spent near the cage. Every angle it has seen you from, the profile as you walk past, the direct view as you change the food dish, the slightly elevated angle as you look down into the cage, has been integrated into a representation that the bird uses to identify you across all of those contexts simultaneously. When your bird turns toward the doorway before you appear, it is not responding to a sound cue or a movement pattern. It is responding to some combination of contextual predictors, the time of day, the preceding sounds from elsewhere in the home, the subtle sensory information that precedes your entry, processed through a recognition system that already knows exactly what it is waiting for, It is waiting. How long does a budgie retain this facial recognition? This question has both a research answer and a practical answer, and both of them are striking. Research on long-term memory in budgerigars and related species indicates that social recognition memories, memories of specific individuals, both avian and human, are among the most stable and durable memories in the bird's cognitive architecture. These memories do not fade at the rate that simple associative memories fade. They are consolidated differently, stored differently, and retrieved differently, in a way that parallels how humans retain memories of faces they know well versus faces they have merely encountered. Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Research on avian memory systems notes that socially significant individual recognition memories in parakeet family birds have been documented to persist across periods of separation that, in some documented cases, extend to more than a year without any apparent degradation of recognition accuracy. Your bird will not forget your face, not in weeks, not in months, not based on the available evidence in the span of time most companion birds live. This has practical implications that most owners have never considered. If you travel for 2 weeks and return, your bird recognizes you the moment you walk through the door, not because it has relearned who you are, but because the memory was never degraded by the separation. If your living situation changes and the bird goes to a new home, it retains its model of your face through the transition. If circumstances bring you back into contact with a bird you shared your life with years earlier, the recognition, according to everything the research tells us about how these memories are stored, is likely to be immediate. You are stored in a part of this bird's memory that is specifically designed for the people who matter. The emotional dimension of this capacity is where the research becomes genuinely difficult to discuss without moving beyond what the data directly establishes, and I want to be careful here, while also being honest about what the evidence suggests. The studies on face recognition in budgies are behavioral studies. They tell us what the bird can do. They tell us that the bird distinguishes your face from other faces with reliable accuracy, that it has a stable long-term representation of your specific appearance, and that this representation informs how it responds to your presence. What the behavioral data cannot tell us directly is what the bird experiences when it recognizes your face. Whether recognition is accompanied by something that functions like the warmth of recognition, the specific quality of seeing someone you know well, is a question that current neuroscience cannot answer for certain in any non-human animal. What we can say, and what the research supports, is that the behavioral consequences of facial recognition in budgies are different when the recognized face belongs to a bonded individual versus a familiar but non-bonded individual. The bird responds to your face differently than it responds to the face of someone it knows but has not bonded with. That difference in response, the increase in vocalization, the approach behavior, the contact seeking, reflects something happening in the bird's nervous system that the recognition of your face specifically triggers. Whether you call that recognition plus emotional response or simply recognition, the behavioral signature is the same. What it means that your bird knows your face and has known it in this detailed and durable way for as long as you have shared the same space. Every morning you have woken up and gone to the cage, your face was the first thing it registered and confirmed. Every time you came home and walked through the door, the identification was made before you said a word. Every time you sat near the cage and did something entirely mundane, read, worked, watched something, thought about something else entirely, the bird was aware through continuous low-level perceptual monitoring that the person in the room was you, not just a person, you. This is not a small thing. In the wild, the ability to recognize specific individuals, to know who this is versus who that is, to have stable models of specific faces that persist over time and update with the new information, is a cognitive resource that requires significant neural investment. The fact that your budgie has made that investment for your face means that you occupy a position in its cognitive landscape that is reserved for individuals worth that kind of sustained attention. You now understand the research, the mechanism, and what it means that your bird has been carrying a detailed model of your face in its memory since the beginning. But stay until the end, because there is one final dimension of this that the research only recently began to document, a capacity that goes beyond simply recognizing your face and into something that researchers describe as genuinely unexpected in a bird this size. The final finding: your budgie does not just recognize your face. Research published in the last decade on budgerigar social cognition has documented that budgies can read emotional expressions on human faces with measurable accuracy, distinguishing between happy, neutral, and distressed facial expressions in the people they are bonded with, and adjusting their behavior accordingly. When a bonded owner presents a calm, relaxed facial expression, the bird shows reduced vigilance and increased social approach behavior. When the same owner presents an expression associated with distress or strong negative emotion, the bird's vigilance increases, its body language shifts toward alarm readiness, and its vocalizations change in quality. The bird is not just seeing your face, it is reading your face. It is monitoring the emotional information your expression carries, and using that information to calibrate its own emotional state and behavioral responses in real time. I want to be very clear about what this means. Your budgie has been watching your face, your specific face, not faces in general, since the day it arrived in your home. It has learned what your expressions look like when you are calm. It knows what your face looks like when something is wrong. It has a model of your emotional states that is derived entirely from watching you, that has been refined by months or years of observation, and that it uses actively to decide how safe the world is right now. You are not just the person who feeds it and provides its environment. You are the primary source of emotional information your bird uses to navigate its day. Your face, in the most literal and scientifically supportable sense, tells your bird how the world is going. Think about what that means for the mornings you have gone to the cage, distracted or tired or worried about something entirely unrelated to the bird. The bird saw it. Think about the evenings you sat near the cage, content and quiet and present. The bird saw that too. Every emotional state you carried into that room has been registered, categorized, and integrated into your bird's ongoing model of what your face means. And the bird has been responding to all of it, calibrating its own state, adjusting its own behavior, orienting itself around the emotional information your face provides for the entire duration of your relationship. You have a 30-gram bird that knows your face, carries it in long-term memory, and reads your expressions to understand its world. That is not a small thing. That is not a simple thing. That is the result of months of sustained perceptual investment by an animal that did not have to make that investment, that could have treated you as background, as furniture, as a predictable source of food and nothing more, but instead chose, through whatever mechanism drives the social cognition of a budgerigar, to know you specifically, to remember you specifically, to read you specifically. The bird made a choice about you. It made that choice early, and it has been living by it ever since. That is a relationship, specific and mutual and built over time, in which the bird has invested something real and irreversible. It knows you. It has known you for a long time. I have to ask you something, and I genuinely want to know. Has there been a moment with your bird where you felt, with real certainty, that it was reading you, that it responded to something you were feeling rather than something you were doing?